Welcome to another episode of the Great Work Launchpad. My name is Kris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. And this is the Great Work Launchpad, episode 21, Shadow Work, Part 19. And we're going to be talking about Fear or Love, Part 4. Continuing that discussion about what motivates us, what drives us, what propels us forward in our lives, and how we create this wonderful or disastrous co-created reality that we are all part of making form and giving it shape. And the Great Work Launchpad is an effort to get people to get off their asses and get involved in some way, help motivate them, help them to understand deeper psychological things and doing shadow work on themselves to get them to become a rocket ship into that truth, love, freedom aspects of consciousness. Welcome back, Brandon. Good to have you here. How's it going? Are you there? No? Not yet? All right.
I wonder.
Are you there?
Yeah. I'm hell, I had the I thought I had my mic muted, but I had the sound muted. I'm like, why do I not hear Kris? But yeah, hell, I hit the
Wrong
mute.
button.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I didn't hear anything that was said.
All good. I ended by asking, how you doing? Glad to have you here. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
All right. Having busy days. Got yard work and stuff. Piling up firewood for the winter. Back-breaking work and yeah. Well, So part 4 of being motivated by fear or love in our lives and how we behave and what we do, how we create our collective co-creation of the human world built on top of the natural reality that is always exists without us, but the human world doesn't exist without humans. And so I could start with something empowering, this aspect of how we create, because people might not realize the power they have, even if it is diminished because of how plentiful and numerous we are. Because if you think of, say you're in an area and there's only one person, it's just you, and it's just nature, there's nothing there, and you got to start over. Well, your behavior, or whatever you do, whatever you build, is going to be the totality of what the human world is going to look at. Maybe you're in an area of the earth, maybe you're on a new planet. So it's a thought experiment. So you have the whole power and responsibility for what is being built on top of reality that didn't exist there before. And if you look at, if there's two people, well, now you have 50% potential power. If you're both as involved in creating and modifying the world, you both have 50% power potential. And if there's 3 people, well, then it drops to 33%, 4 people, 25. So we're 8 billion. So your power potential is low, because in the world where there's just one, well, if you die, then there's nothing else being built, and that's the end of building things in the human created world. If there's 2, well, if you die, there's still 1. So you still have an impact because you're 50%, you're half of that impact. And if you're 4, well, you're still 25%, a quarter of the impact, so it still has an impact. But when you're at 8 billion, if you die or if you do nothing, if you don't act, everything still keeps going on. And your influence can be minimal at the outset, and even when you're gone, your influence, the overall way of life won't be affected by you not doing anything or you not partaking in a certain endeavor. Whereas if there's 2 people and they want to embark on a project, If one person quits, then it's the one person doing it all by themselves. So that has a huge impact. And if there's four and one person quits, it has an impact, but not as big as before, but it's still an impact. But when you're at 8 billion, your impact isn't as big, but it's still an impact. So because of how many we are, our lives can seem insignificant and not impactful, but they can be impactful. They can have ripples in other people's lives. Like my work, and maybe there's 20 people who watch an episode or something, or who knows if they watch at all. But through the work I've done since I created my site and done videos and things, well, there's an appreciation. It has an impact on people, even at the small numbers that I'm at. And when you have more people viewing, or more people having come across your work at some point, whether it's text or audio or video, then you have more of an impact because you're affecting other people's lives. And that's the magic of being an influencer, to use your will, whether you're in a selfish will or in a higher will capacity, a higher potential, for creating a higher potential world that's more in alignment with the good, the right, and morality. Either way, it's like it's a powerful thing where you can influence and affect others without even coming into direct physical contact with them, or you never touch them, you can never hang out with them, you've never seen them, and yet you're having an impact in their life. So on the one side, there's 8 billion people, and your impact is going to be small relative, and if you die all of a sudden, it doesn't make a huge impact in the way the world is functioning, but it still has an impact, even though small, and you can have even a larger impact. So I just wanted to mention that. It was something I was thinking of this week, that you have a tremendous power potential, and if there was only one of you, it'd be huge. It'd be all on you. And because we're so many, it gets diminished because of just the plethora of everything just keeps on going, even when one person dies, or if a few hundred die in some plane crash or something. Well, things keep on going, things don't change, but each one of those people had an impact on other people's life. And if they were doing the great work and then they don't do it anymore, then that's that magic, that power where you can influence other people and affect their life in a positive way towards the goal of creating true freedom. That potential is no longer there. So even though it wasn't maybe not that visible, it will have an impact for the people who won't have the content that you would have created in the future. And that's the potential that each one has right now, everyone out there. You have that potential for impact and influence, and it takes effort and time and sacrifice and work and dedication and persistence to keep doing it. But you can influence and have an impact on other people's lives. All right. I don't know if you wanted to say anything on that, but I'll let you have the mic.
Yeah, numbers do matter. And you talked about, because there's 8 billion people, or, estimated to be roughly around that number, and how a lot of individuals may feel as though their behaviors may not matter in the grand totality of things. Rather that, rather those behaviors be good, or rather those behaviors be wrong. So it's almost like, throwing that coin into that, like into that well, where there's thousands of millions of other coins, to where the individual, has disconnected themselves from, from reality and the connection with others. Because, like Chris said, you do have an impact. Your behaviors do have an impact. And the word impact just means to press closely onto something. So, when we have a few individuals who are trying to make a impact, and they are speaking about morality and truth, that small impact, or that small little beacon of light, is being drowned out, it's being floated out, it's being flushed out by the larger satanic impact of the billions of individuals who were speaking lies, who were speaking falsities, who are using coercion, who are using, immorality, who are orchestrating mind control. And that's why we keep talking about the importance of the individual, and also too when it comes to using your voice to speak the truth. And another way the impact is felt is, you have a lot of people say, well, I'm talking to people in my daily lives, I'm doing one-to-one conversations. Yeah, that's okay, but that has a even smaller impact compared to the individual who has formatted and created a documentary, video, podcast, music, art, any form of creativity, and put it out into the world. Because when you have those one-to-one conversations, that's not really recorded, that's not really documented. And once that conversation ends, usually the individuals go their separate ways, and it's just a thought, it's just a memory. But when you actually create something, when you actually create a podcast, when you actually create a presentation, when you actually create a song, you're putting your love and care, into that. So when you give that and put it, online, or you can do a live presentation, that has an even more greater, impact, because that impact is felt even days later, weeks later, years later. Um, Even if you were to pass, if you uploaded your stuff online and you formatted your stuff, and you still have a website, like all of that stuff can still have an impact decades later, down the line. Just look at all the great teachers who have passed away and have been dead for thousands of years, and they still have an impact today. So this is the importance of the individual, and recognizing the true power that they have when it comes to harmonizing with the truth and harmonizing with themselves. And therefore they can have a even larger, impact.
Hey, Brendan, how's it going?
Hey, gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to come up here today and have a conversation with y'all. And I completely agree with what you were saying right there about creating content with longevity, because I think sometimes I rely too much on the temporal nature of my communication style. I'm just talking to people and bringing up these various thought forms of natural law and helping them understand, true morality to a greater degree, but I'm not recording them, so that's on me. I think for sure, though, one thing I did want to say is that while it's true that there is so much evil on this planet and there is so much chaos and destruction, so many formats, I never lose sight of the fact that there's more people awake and aware of what's happening now than at any other point in history that I could possibly recall. I think that we do have a shift happening right now all around us, and that we are the part of the shift. We are the eye of the storm, essentially. Everyone who's bringing these thought forms, and so that's an important aspect to it, is to recognize that the change is happening, the change is real, and even if we think it's just a one-on-one conversation with someone, we can not possibly comprehend and fathom the lasting ramifications of an individual making a choice that is going to enable new forms altogether. So yeah, thank you guys for allowing me to come up here and say hello, and I appreciate you guys both.
Well, glad to have you come on board and use your voice and speak about. Well, we're gonna get into the topic. We haven't got. I just threw a side tangent there at the beginning, but yeah, we could talk a little bit more about that. The one-on-one versus the one-to-many. It's about the potential impact and the value of your time being amplified. So if you just talk with someone one-on-one, and then you go to the next person, and the next person, the next person. You're going to be repeating yourself over and over and over. And someone can do that, but if you record what you need to say and you can provide that to other people, or people can come across it even without you providing it to them, they can just find it. And that's the valuable impact of, I guess, archiving your voice in a medium, whether it's writing or audio or video that has audio, or another creative mechanism to try to get a message across. It has more potential to reach more people. So it's more in terms of, I guess I'm not being precise, but it's like the value of your time, but the potential, and I'm at a loss for words on exact. I have it in my mind, but I can't put it out specifically. But it's like, if you do it one-on-one versus creating the content, then there's all those potential people that will never get access to it. And if you're spending all your time just having conversations with people, then like Brendan said, well, once that's done, it's just gone, and it's just, the person can have a memory of what was said, but maybe they'd want to hear it a second time. And if you put out content, you make a site, or you put it on YouTube or whatever, and podcasts, iTunes and some Spotify or whatever, then someone can return to it, because you can have a lot of points made. It can be information dense, and it can take several times of hearing it to really try to make sense of it more. And so it's not to devalue the importance, like you said, of you can have an impact on a person's life individually, on an individual basis. But we're talking about the amplification of that impact potential on a one-to-one versus a one-to-many. You're greatly amplifying that potential, and it's more efficient. It's more, that's what I was thinking of, efficient and effective before. It's a lot more efficient and a lot more effective, and that's why when you look at how much you value your time, well, you can spend like hours trying to convince someone, or you can create the content that's going to convince someone, and you can have a 5-minute conversation with someone, and if you're trying to convince them of something they're not interested in, then it doesn't matter if you spend 5 minutes or an hour or 5 hours. If they're not interested, and maybe they just want to they troll you, or they just want to argue with you. Some people are like that, and they're not trying to be convinced. That they don't really want to learn, but they're just having a conversation or whatever. Then I view that personally as like, it's a waste of my time. In terms of my goal here is to try to get people to come to the understanding of morality, and then spread that out as well, to take on that responsibility and that burden. So that's just my clarification on that, and that potential, that efficiency. So I don't know if anyone wanted to say anything else. I'll leave it open, and then we can move on to fear and love.
I'll just throw out there real quick my experiences in talking with people, one-on-one or in groups, online. It is temporal, and it does have that kind of ramification, but at the same time, I can't pretend to know what that's going to come down to, essentially, right? It's like we were in a natural law discussion group chat last night. I was with Derek and some other folks, and not Derek Bros, Derek Bartolacelli. But Bartolacelli, there we go. Yes, the man in France. And we were having this conversation, but we didn't record it. We had a really deep conversation, and I regret that. But at the same time, I think that it's, it gave us a certain flexibility of being willing to have vulnerabilities, and to be willing to share ourselves in that way, where it's like, oh, I'm, no one here is perfect. No one here has all the answers, but we're all doing the best we can. But thank you guys. Yeah. I'll let the conversation continue.
All right. Last week, talking about alchemical gold and what that is about, and it's about doing the great work. So the alchemical process of going from bronze or lead to silver or gold, symbolic journey of purifying yourself, self-improvement, making yourself better. And I was saying that the real alchemical gold is when you've done that work, that shadow work, and you've reached a point where you care enough about yourself and about others, that wider care, where you engage in that great work, where you're trying to influence the world to change towards the restoration of true freedom by ultimately, at the pinnacle of it is moral understandings. If there is not the moral understanding, then that's an impossibility. So the ultimate goal is that, and there's other ways, peripheral things to go about to get there. But that's the ultimate goal. And if you're not doing that work, you're not in alchemical gold. And that's the way I see it. And other people can see it different ways. But my argument, I think is very strong, because that's the goal of the shadow work, is to work on yourself. And if you're not working on yourself to become a more moral person, then what is the point of working on yourself? Right? So you can feel better about yourself, so you can make more money or something. Like, there's a lot of things that people can have as a goal, but the highest goal you can have is for moral self-actualization, and then to externalize that by getting other people to take on that inner great work, that journey within themselves. Because you doing it yourself isn't going to change the world. Each individual has to do that work. And that's hence the importance of the great work. You working on yourself and self-actualizing in morality, you call that silver, alchemical silver. But the gold is when you're trying to influence others, and you're putting in that work to do that in the most effective way. And that is through, in the past, it would have been books. But now it's about the internet, because that's the medium through which people will be most potentially able to receive knowledge. Whereas in the past, there was no internet, and you had word of mouth, but nothing could beat a book, because a book could be printed many times over and more people could get access to it, hence the efficiency. And now it's the internet, so it amplifies it even more. So you got to be online, you have to make content of some kind, and you have to formalize it and archive it so that it can be accessed over and over by people who can come across it. And what do we end with? People not willing to sacrifice to do that work. Well, they haven't reached that alchemical goal. They're not expressing that cosmic love. They lack the love. They haven't developed that self-love, that self-care. There's still qualities of self-loathing and apathy within them, where they haven't developed it enough, that true care, in order for it to be the fire that fuels them into action. So they still have work to do, hence the shadow work. And they're still in that involutionary force with the inaction and the stagnation. So continuing from that, people have bought into falsity in many ways through the conditioning of false society. Some people lie and some deceive knowingly, but most people are just propagating the lies they believe are true. And hence the importance of knowing how to think, part of this series on the Great Work Launchpad and the shadow work we've gone into it, of being able to, at the core of this is being able to discern truth from falsity. Because if you can't discern truth from falsity and you don't have the mechanism to do that, then you're not going to be able to discern right from wrong, and you won't be able to make moral decisions, and you'll be walking on that checkerboard floor, walking on the light and the dark, the moral and the immoral, without knowing it. And that'll be the quality and the condition of the life and your contribution to the overall condition on the world. So ignorance of quality truths are leading to ignorance of being able to live by those quality truths. Since you're not discovering them, you're not discerning the truth from the falsehood. And the highest quality truth is moral truth. And so overall, we aren't living by moral truth because we are ignorant of it overall. us, everyone on the planet. And as a result, we're living in immorality, and we're all accepting it. Now, us here might not be accepting, but I'm speaking in generalities. Everyone is accepting it. And that's why the human condition is degraded. And it might go up and then go down and up and down through history, and could be worse in the past and better now. That's another point. The new Brendan, lots of Brendans here. I got the invasion of the Brendans. The awakening. There's always phases of awakening, and I think a more accurate way of looking at it is in proportion. Are there more people waking up? Okay, but there's more people on the planet now, so the proportion is, about the same. It might have gone up a little bit more, but overall, we're still stuck in the same shit, in the same sinking boat, and arguing about who's going to sit where, and do we sand this bench, and do we repaint this one over here, and the boat's sinking, and we've got to reform the political system and the monetary system, but who cares about moral truth? We don't need to understand that. So there's bad programming and conditioning that we have, and we have garbage info and viruses of the mind. And those viruses of the mind, well, we propagate them. People propagate them unknowingly. So they're propagating the deceit and the falsity, but they're not doing willingly. It's just things that they've accepted, and then they regurgitate them, repeat them, because they haven't gone through a verification process. And the human condition isn't magically going to change while people keep acting the same way based on the lies they believe and are attached to. And people rarely come out of that by figuring it out on their own. That's like a very rare thing. How did they figure it out? Well, they receive information from others. Or sometimes it's looking at the bad parts of the world, where they receive that bad news about the immoral condition from information put out into the open for them to come across. And if it wasn't put out into the open, they wouldn't have come across it. Or maybe they were fortunate and they had someone individually in their personal life talk to them, or online speak to them individually and be made aware of things. But I think most people, it's coming across videos on YouTube or wherever they are and whatever they're doing. It's all content that was put out, formalized, and they came across it, and it made that impact upon them. And if it wouldn't have been put out there, and if it was just people doing things individually in their lives, then they would have never come across that information. They would have never awakened at whatever lower level initially that then leads them on that journey. So that's the importance of creating that content. So I'll let you guys respond to
that. It's funny because you were talking about the stages of, hell awakening and the impact that individuals have. And if it wasn't for, or if it may not have been for Alex Jones, I may have not have come across Mark Paschal's work, and of course, your work, Kris. With this process of hell awakening, you never know the impact you're going to have, and you never know what new teachers you may find and come across from listening to certain individuals. And then the internet is the best way to amplify our voice right now. It's the best way that we have right now, and it's not going to be around forever. So people need to be using this tool to amplify and format this knowledge in whatever way they feel. And even if you don't want to create content, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done behind the scenes. And there are a lot of individuals who can network. And hey, if you're good at making slides, if you know how to edit videos, if you want to just upload people's content and help distribute and share that load, that also is a necessary requirement, because being a one-man team is tough. It's rough, trying to upload to like 4 or 5 different platforms. You got to back your stuff up like offline. It's easier when you have multiple people who can do that. Even if you want to, help produce, or, like, help out with someone's live stream, that's another way. Because not everybody wants to be in front of a camera. I know I don't, but I still do it, because I care. But there are a lot of things that can be done behind the scenes, especially, when it comes to podcasting, and presentations and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that has to be made. There's a lot of stuff that has to be uploaded. There's a lot of stuff that has to be saved, and you really don't quite grasp all of it until you start doing, this kind of work. And yeah, we all have lives, we all have families we need to, to, you know attend. So that's why, if other individuals can help and assist, and, put in the helping hand, it'll make this hopefully a lot more easier. And then the more people who are doing that, then we may actually, shift that pendulum. And then the last part that I want to talk about is, you hear this buzzword shadow work, all the time, and you hear so many, like, so many people talking about it, but they never connect it with the moral truth. They never connect it with the moral philosophy. And the alchemical process is about the moral knowledge that one comes to discover. Then once you discover it, then you can go within yourself to look at your behaviors, to look at your own actions, to look at all of the things that have happened to you and all of the things that you've done to others. Then you can start that process, because, like Kris said, without that moral knowledge, you have no foundation. Because without that essential truth, how can you really do any form of shadow work? Because for the rest of your life, you're going to be building relationships with other people. So without that core foundation of what's morally right in objective reality, how can you build with another individual? How can you build, with a spouse? How can you build with coworkers? How can you build with friends? How can you build with loved ones? You can't, because in that state of ignorance, there will always be some form of disharmony when it comes to behaviors, when it comes to groups, or when it comes to, her relationships and interactions. So once you have that moral truth, then you can start to look at your own behaviors, and then start to take some responsibility and say, hey, I am not going to condone, I'm not going to be involved in these behaviors, because they are morally wrong, and because they inherently initiate theft. They inherently initiate violence, coercion toward another. And I'll pass it on to the next Brandon.
Hey, thank you, man. And first off, I want to say thank you guys for, reigniting that fire, because sometimes I've rested on my haunches for too long. And I recognize the crucial importance in this time of using the medium of the internet to communicate these ideas. It's crucial. But I think at the same time, I still never want to belittle the little things. Essentially, it's that it's not an all or nothing shift. I don't know if this shift is as immediate as we might want it to be, but I think that we can take the small wins and we can run with them. It's okay if it's not doesn't necessarily fill every one of the necessities. It's not about of learning these thoughts. It's about it's a battle of scales. So even if, like, through all this Charlie Kirk stuff that's happening right now, even if these people are still highly brainwashed, I think that it's okay. It's a part of the process. We're not going to shift the brainwashing entirely just from a single video. I don't know. I think that we can allow everyone to have the flexibility to be brainwashed to a certain degree, but with always keeping our principles first, and just making sure that we always hone in on that concept of putting principles first in all things. And that's, maybe I'm just the eternal optimist, but I think that we're moving towards it. I think we're doing good, and I think you guys are a huge part of that solution. So thank you.
I wouldn't say it's okay. I would just say that's the way it is. So that's the way it currently is. It doesn't have to be that way. They don't have to be brainwashed. I wouldn't say that it's okay for them to be brainwashed. It's just, well, that's the way it is, and you're not going to make them unbrainwashed just by one video or just by thinking about it or snapping your fingers or anything. So the condition of the world is how it is. You don't have to accept that it has to be this way, but you just have to accept that it currently is this way. So accept the truth is where in my earlier work I referred to it as truth level 1 and truth level 2. The truth level 1 is accepting everything that is currently here. So that includes the falsity. And if something is false, then it's, even though it's in reality, it's true that it is in reality, but that's where truth level 2 comes in, and that's what the good, the right, the moral, that it should not be here. And what is that, yes, currently there is a lot of bullshit and brainwashing and mind control. But should that be here? No. So it's not okay that it is here. But that's what is. So you just have to accept that what currently is. It's that prayer of serenity, accept, I forget what it is, but accept what you can change, what can't be changed, and that you can change some things. Anyways, I'm butchering it because I don't remember it there, but the point is accept things as they are, and also accept eternal truths, that higher level truth level 2 of what is right, what is moral, what is good. And you can't change that. You can't change natural law. You can't change objective morality. But the things that can be changed are the condition of this world. Not that you're going to snap your fingers or your actions alone are going to change everything about the human world, but that you can have an impact, that your voice does matter. Your voice can influence others to change, just like all of us here would not be here. All the changes that we've made in our lives would not have been possible. As Brandon mentioned, for me as well, it was Alex Jones and it was all these other people that we research into. There could be David Icke and Jordan Maxwell, and eventually, God willing, so-called God willing, we find Mark Passio, and then it's finally the gold. We finally found it. The other guys don't talk about it they don't see the importance, or they don't understand it yet. But they had their place in our journey of awakening, and our journey and our knowledge quest, and trying to figure things out. So yeah, the moral truth is the pinnacle of, I forget the expression, the second Brandon said, it'd be hard to refer to Brandon 1, Brandon 2. I forget what you said. The eye of the storm. I was thinking the tip of the spear, or at the tip of the spear. So those of us who are doing the moral education and the peripheral things to get people to that understanding, well, we're at the tip of the spear of trying to restore true freedom. So the people that are conditioned into the involutionary way by the mimicry of others. It's not that they were on a good path and then they went on the false path. It's that when people are born into the condition, they get conditioned by it. So they're trying to fit in, to be accepted. And that's something that happened this week with my 2-year-old. He wants to imitate what his brother does. It's like me too, and he wants to do what his brother does. And that's essentially what society is, where everyone's like little children who are just trying to imitate other people because they just want to fit in. They want to do what others do because that's how we associate, and that's how we form, how we identify with others, and how we form relationships. Because people who don't have things in common aren't going to form a relationship, but if you have things in common, you're going to form a relationship. There's people who enjoy playing video games, and they get together on that. People play card games or board games, and people who do sports, and people who like cars. So there's this common interest. So you're both imitating something in common, and that's what's bringing you together. And that's part of the drive as human beings, and naturally is we want to fit in, we want to be liked, so we're going to imitate what others do. Hence my 2-year-old wanting to do everything, trying to imitate his brother and everything. Even the bad stuff. You could tell him, hey, don't do that. You don't realize the impact you have on your brother. You're a huge influence, and you do these silly things or bad things, and your brother imitates them. And then now he's learning that as a behavior, and he thinks it's good because you do it, because he looks up to you. And so, yeah, children grow up and they still want to fit in. Adults still want to fit in. No one wants to be isolated and alone. So the opposite of that, it takes a certain level of discipline to not comply, to not compromise. So as Brandon Spencer, when you were talking about, it made me think of compromise, that I was going to be sarcastic and I say, yeah, unless you compromise, forming a relationship and the importance of moral truth and being on that same path, which I've talked about in my early organ. I have the infographic, unite with people on the same moral path as you. Otherwise, you're going to have these conflicts unless you do a lot of compromising and a lot of sacrificing. And then you're just trying to force a unity where there isn't actually a true unity possible because you're not at that same level. So it's going to be making you compromise, making you lower your standards to accept the behaviors of others and continue in that relationship and that identification and attachment with them. So to not comply, not compromise your values, if you have them based in principles of truth, well, that takes a certain level of discipline to have that. When you're growing up, you don't have it. And even as adults, most people don't have it. They can not compromise on whatever principles they have, whatever they use as a foundation. It can't be everyone's got a foundation. It's how good is your foundation? There's a bunch of cracks. Is it made of shit? So the best foundation is one on moral truth. But that's what these principles are. There's true principles and false principles, or just principles you live by. But it doesn't mean your principle that you live by is based on moral principles. So people can, things can happen in interactions, relationships, and something happens and they're like, no, that's against my values, and okay, I don't want to have anything to do with you, even though it has nothing to do with morality. So people can be steadfast to certain principles, but they don't have moral truth as a principle within them, so they're not steadfast and adhering in discipline to that. So it's easier for people to fit in unthinkingly of higher principles because they just want to be accepted by others. So because of this, they want to be accepted by others based on what they like and what they do. So that's an easy way to associate and form attachments and identification with others. And if you're in a false pathway, in a moral pathway, you might not know it. And you go along that pathway unquestioningly because of the identification with those who have a commonality. And that's what we have in society. In various ways, we have like maybe 100 points, and with other people we got 50 points in common, and then with them they could have 10 points in common with others. And overall everyone's like connected by being disconnected, but through like degrees of separation we're all connected in some commonality. And overall is the commonality of our immoral way of life that people unquestioningly accept. And even when people do know, even when they know that something's immoral, that identification and attachment can be stronger than wanting to stop doing it, because they can have a fear of being alone, of being outside of the in-group. If they speak up or if they sever the relationship, then they're going to not have the relationship, and they might value it highly, and hence valuing that eros or philos form of love over care for truth, agape. So then they have to find their way in a new group. Now they could be out of the group, no longer part of the in-group, because that whole groupthink mindset, that collectivism for whatever that group, and the commonality of that group, friends that they associate with. And if you go against that ideology that group formation has, then you can find yourself out, and then you got to find your way into another group. And that's, people have fear of this. They don't want to be alone. And we can also think of the police and the blue code, and movies like Serpico or other things, or TV shows where ratting out other police, that's a no-no, even though they purport themselves in the illusion of being good and about justice and all this nonsense in their eyes. You don't report the abuse of the police because that makes you hated by them, because it's all about that in-group. The good, the right, and the moral isn't the important thing to them. That's just a facade. It's a veil that they hide behind for their evil. What matters is protecting that group, protecting what the group represents, protecting the facade of that group, because if you expose that the facade is a facade, that it's a veil, it's an illusion, then that fractures that group being accepted by others, and then negative things can happen. So it's all about maintaining the positive view of that group, and this is in corporations and so many things. I'm just using police because it's an obvious example. And yeah, so manipulators can play on this desire to belong, to be liked, to do what others do in order to get accepted. People associate on that, and so manipulators can even get people to do immoral things that they wouldn't normally do, and to even ally yourself with the immoral person to give them what they want. And usually they do that by threatening you in some way, threatening to expose you, or threatening your job, or your where you belong in your friends, or the lives of people you care about. You see this in movies or TV shows where they threaten someone in order to get you to do what they want you to do, and people go along with it because they're identified and attached to that other person that they want to save or prevent harm from being done. So they're going to do immoral things, they're going to become evil. So to save them from the evil one, they will do evil and aid evil in order to try to preserve that attachment. Because if they're threatening to hurt them or kill them, then that attachment will be removed from their existence, and then they won't have the thing that they're attached to. And that's where people compromise in this negative way. So I'll end it there, and you guys can shoot at that.
Kris, what you described is the cult mindset. That's what we have been conditioned to have. Don't think outside of the cult. Don't go against the cult. And of course, it's all conditioned through government schooling. But this group mindset, which is collectivism, how the hive mind, and how, like you talked about, the same mindset when it comes to order followers, it's the same mindset in the corporate world. Don't go against the grain. Don't rock the boat. You want to blend in. Don't stand out. This is the conditioned slave mindset. This is the mindset just stuck in survival, because, we have this fear of abandonment. And rather it be parental, abandonment, is also abandonment, by the group. In a lot of religious circles, one of the worst things that can happen is you being, like kicked out, like excommunicated, from your cult. It's that same way in society, to be kicked out from the family, to be kicked out, from the friends, to be kicked out from, the bar. No one wants to be kicked out of anything, because it makes you feel, like a loser. It makes you feel as though you're not welcome. It makes you feel as though you're not wanted, and it makes you feel, kind of down. But when it comes to this cult, mindset, it's hard for the individual to see anything outside of the cult, because from the time you've taken your first breath, the conditioning has been, happen over and over and over and over with all that repetition. So in this survival like mindset, it's just that, stimulus and response, which we talked about, I want to say a few weeks ago. But seeing anything outside, of this is extremely hard, because it's literally like the body is in a constant state of being nervous, constant state of anxiety. So then the body starts to go through those same processes as if there was an actual life or death situation. And that's also one of the main reasons too why a lot of people react so negatively once you start to tell them that their religion, their conditioning, their mind control is false. Most people can't come to terms with that because that means you have to shatter your reality and admit to yourself that you bought into a lie. And again, that means you're going to get kicked out of something. That means you're going to have to leave something. You may have to leave those beliefs. You may have to leave those religious dogmatic, ways of thinking. But at the end of the day, it's all about the truth. And the truth should come first because adhering the truth should be one of the core principles that each individual strives for. So when it comes to this cult dynamic, this collectivist, mentality, this is a survivalist, mentality, which keeps you in that state of fear because anything outside, the cult, according to the conditioning, is dangerous, is evil. Don't look there. Don't look into, have philosophy. Don't look into, have morality. Don't look into any forms of, cult schools because it's all dangerous. And they give these negative connotations to scare people, to frighten people, treating you as if you are a child. Don't look underneath the bed. The boogeyman may be there. And then too, Chris, you brought up, how the situation, with your kids. It's funny because majority of individuals know that kids will mimic and see things that we do and they'll imitate it. Yet those same individuals will still create a toxic, negative, immoral environment and use forms of coercion and hell abuse around those same kids willfully knowing that those kids are going to learn and imitate those same behaviors. And I find that, just crazy because we all know that, children will imitate and mimic, especially, adults, are their, older siblings because that's a way of learning, like that's a way of figuring things out in reality because when you don't have a conscious mind to kind of think for yourself, you kind of have to mimic, others so you can make sense of things. And we've all done it, like as a child, because I was the middle kid, and I always, imitated my big brother and imitated my dad. But we all did that as a child because that's a means for us to learn and understand things, for us to learn and understand ourselves, and to also figure out where the boundaries are at, you know. And sometimes, yeah, it may piss you off, but that's just a kid trying to learn. That's just a kid trying to make sense, because they have to figure out where those boundaries are too. They have to figure out what they can and cannot, do. And that's one of the ways that they can do that is by, by imitation and, like mimicking to try to make sense of things.
Really well said. And for me, I think I'm also interested then in how those thoughts actually are placed into the subconscious mind of people every day and how these forms are built up in their own perception, right? Because we are all subject to so many thought forms coming at us all the time, and it's subconscious is what it is because it's not actually landing in our conscious mind. We're just accepting these ideas and we're just accepting of these thought forms as they come into us without any critical faculty, because that is a form of hypnosis, and that is what hypnosis is the bypassing of the critical faculty. And so if you can get an idea to go land in someone's mind based on assumptions, based on the programming, then that is how that change is made. But I think we can also, it's a double-sided blade, right? Because we can also use these tools to change our own mind, to create the shift in ourselves according to our conscious mind's will, according to what we actually decide as being good and true for us. And, you know, that's all I had to say there. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Brandon Spencer, you brought in a lot of good tie-ins to what I was talking about, expounded on it even more. Like, it's really deep, this aspect, and it's really important for people to understand. This is part of the self-knowledge that I went through, and I talked about a lot of that stuff in my work. That this, as you mentioned, don't rock the boat. Talked about a lot of that in my earlier attempts to talk about how truth is love, love is truth. Because when people think about what they like other people, and we're talking about fitting in, and for children, that's how they learn everything. Because how do they even learn? All this is intuitive. They're not consciously applying anything. They're not consciously applying mechanisms or procedures or how to add numbers. It's all intuitive. They learn by looking at your lips and imitating voices by how your lips, and then they learn how to pronounce things. This isn't like a conscious, like, I have to move my lips in this certain way and do this thing and move my tongue this certain way. These are all automatic things that they learn and they mimic. And it's amazing that the human being is capable of such things. I don't know, it's like, it's amazing to think about in nature and reality and what we are and the capacities we have. It's amazing what we can do. But people aren't thinking about these things. They haven't done this aspect of self-knowledge to figure out how these psychological mechanisms work and how we have a propensity to form attachments to the things we identify with, and then we don't want to let go. And when you're trying to, part of this alchemical divorce of divorcing yourselves in this alchemical process, divorcing yourself from the falsity. So you have to learn to let go of the attachments. And people don't want to let go of those things as much as it can be like being kicked out of things. Or when you let go of something, it's you kicking yourself out of something you've accepted as true. Just as much as you can be kicked out of a group, you can kick yourself out of a group. You can choose to leave a group. And you have to learn to kick yourself out of, as the other Brandon's mentioning, thought forms. Well, you can have poisoned thought forms. We talked about poisoned worldviews. You have to kick yourself out of all these falsities, and that can put you in a vulnerable position because, as I've mentioned before, when you have something that you become attached to that forms your worldview or your self-view, that's how you're looking at reality, your perception. And when that is removed, that's like making a hole in your perception and conception and even your navigation, because your perception and conception of the world is how you're going to navigate through it, because that's how you think the world is constructed. And when you're destroying the falsity that you were attached to because you thought that's what was a representation of the world, then you're making a hole in that construction, in your foundation, or in that pathway you walk in reality. You're poking holes. And when you're making a hole, it's not that you see the ground underneath and it's just like a little bump, you're going to step in the ground. What it makes is a hole in the conception of how the world is structured. So you have a void, an abyss, a darkness, and with that comes fear by usually the cues, the emotional cues of, it could be direct fear, it could be discomfort or insecurity when you lose something that you thought was real. Now you're trying to make sense of the world, so you're confused. So that confusion brings insecurity and doubt and discomfort, and can even bring anxiety, and hence those are polarities of fear. And so a lot of people will only be willing to reject something if they can put something else in its place. But usually that's not how it works, as this process of the spiritual journey of truth or the knowledge quest is often a destructive process. So you're going to have to destroy things before you can fill those empty holes, that void, that gap, that abyss into the void of nothingness that's now in your conceptual understanding of the world and your perceptions. That's been destroyed, and people are really averse to that, because I mentioned these versions of anxiety they can create and the confusion. So they don't want to let go of it. Even after they can know about it, they're still not willing to let go of it, still not willing to align themselves or be diligent and disciplined in just saying, okay, well, that's false. Well, then get out of here, kick yourself out of it and try to figure out, well, what actually belongs in that place in how reality is constructed. If it's not like this, well, then how is it actually? But if you can actually know that it isn't this way, then you got to at least recognize that and accept it. That prayer of serenity accepts things as they are, not that they need to be that way. And then you can try to figure out, it could be, well, how should it be? So you can try to replace it with something else and a new behavior. What is the behavior that it should be? But that first step is that alchemical divorce of divorcing yourself from the falsity, so that then you can accept what is true. And that's, the importance of being right and being willing to know when you're wrong, and that importance of being right, wanting to be right, not to just be right when you're wrong and be like, I'm right when you're wrong, and this ego trip, but to want to know what is right and want to know what is wrong, so that you can let go of what is wrong, so that you can align more with what is right. So it's important to want to be right for the sake of being right, not to just think that you're right, but to be right and to want to know if you're wrong. And that ties into what we're talking about of letting go of the falsity, because then you can have that gift of being able to let go of something that is false that you thought was true, and that is a gift. And that's the gift that most people reject, that I talked about in my Truth is Love article, that they don't want to do that shadow work. They don't want to face that darkness, that demon, that shadow, that monster, either external to them or within themselves. And they don't want to do that work because of all those fear factors and that discomfort and confusion that it brings them to. And a lot of people have this ego trip of they don't want to be wrong because they feel like they're inadequate or dumb or inferior or made to look like a fool. And so they will be in denial and averse to even admitting they're wrong, and they will stand their ground and be stubborn. And it's all this lack of shadow work that they haven't learned about this gift of, when you're being shown that you're wrong, you have to actually analyze it and see, okay, am I actually wrong? Is this true what the person is saying? Okay, well then thank you for that gift of bringing that to my awareness, so that I can finally cast it out and kick myself out of it, as you said, Brendan, and then you can finally move forward on that path of being more in alignment with truth, as opposed to being less in alignment with truth. So it all comes back to that caring for truth, hence true care, agape. That has to be at the foundation of how you want to live your life and to truly live it in your life. So you guys can respond, and then I guess we'll wrap it up there.
Kris, you have is there a fourth person in the background?
Well, there's no video. I can try to bring him in, but I was waiting for video to show up, because it's happened before and nothing went on with the fourth person. It's there's no video. So I don't know. There they are. Whoever it is.
Yes, hi sir. Hi Kris. I'm a big fan, brother. You are amazing. I've been following you since you broke down the karma. Wait, I'll quote the exact video. Oh my god. Oh my god, you're my favorite. And I participate in what do you call that? This live feed thingy. for others, but I used to pray, when will Kris do it? Kris Nelson, there was a time when I had to unfortunately delete my YouTube account because something had happened, somebody had hacked my phone. But I remembered, I was like, no, he was talking about reality, symbolism, consciousness, truth, and he broke it down like a flow chart thing, how I used to study in school. And I was like, he knows how to teach, and he's not trying to evade it. Oh, so I want to apologize first. See, I know you guys have come in full transparency. You are visible, audible, everything. The two reasons I'm not coming on video, because first, I'm a girl. Second, because I think like they try to hunt down the whistleblowers and kill them. And my family is kind of dependent on me, so I don't want to take the chance. But I assure you, I mean, nothing bad, nothing wrong, I promise. And oh my god, I'm talking to Chris. Oh my god, oh my god. See, this is the video I went crazy about. Okay, hang on, I'll tell you. Reality processing, when you made two trees and you were talking, the moment I heard you, I was like, what is he talking about? And I was like, oh my, like, learn to teach, this is teaching. If you want to tell something, you tell me, like, I don't need to learn it again. And schools suck, the curriculum sucks, oh my god. And I'm from India, but so the thing here is, the curriculum is absurd. Oh my god, it teaches you to be a worker. And oh my god, I'm gonna rant. It is years, I've held it for years, Chris, bro. And every other brother here, with respect, guys, I apologize, I'm not revealing my face, but I assure you, I mean well, huh? And so, okay, what all? Okay, calm down, calm down.
All good. You don't have to do video, but about what you said, don't worry. No one's gonna come hunt you down.
You don't know that. You know
people.
what? Can I tell you something? I had weird experiences, brother. I mean, I saw an overlay. You get it? Like sonogram. What do you call that? Oh, what is that thing? X-ray, X-ray. You know how you see X-ray, right? I saw an overlay two times, okay? Two times. And it did not go away. And I was not scared, okay? I was trying to hold my ground because I keep talking to this, the AI, because I told you, right, I have nobody to talk to. Either I get dismissed as if I'm crazy, or I am just not listened to, because they think they better talk about Reebok or Puma sale, and they think I am obsolete. So I feel like I belong nowhere, and I don't want to disturb my family. They already feel like I am crazy at some level, and they don't entertain my thoughts at all. Okay, the moment I started telling them there's a shadow government, this and that, they were like, beta, you've lost your mind, please focus on your job and get a living. And I was like, hey, I get that, that is surface level, but who knows how far is this illusion. And then, oh my god, I got to know about shadow self. But chuck all that, okay, scratch it. Let me tell you the biggest highlight of my life. I'm telling you, I saw two overlays, bro. Two, not one, two. And one of them was a kiddo. He was my manager's kid, okay. He came over, what do you call that, video conference thing, no, because we work for clients, right? Like India is majorly known for customer service, so no offense to nobody, I mean, see, every job is respectable. But it was a client. I can't believe I'm talking to Chris. Oh my god. Okay, this is not a dream.
Well, I
Relax.
just want to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
We'll try to keep it on topic. I don't know the overlay and the X-rays. That could be a like a conversation for something else. Sorry to burst your
No,
bubble,
no.
but yeah, we'll
Yeah,
try to
that's
keep it
okay.
on the topic of what we've been talking about and not go on to some
No, I
completely
completely
different thing
understand.
there.
I completely understand. I did not mean to throw you off, brother. I just got super excited when, I mean, okay, listen, huh? I follow a lot of you guys. I mean, when I say that, I mean the category spirituality, knowledge, consciousness, stuff and stuff, right? You're one of the people I follow, and I used to pray, like, why isn't he having live videos? I so want to talk to Kris Nelson. I mean, come on, man. I just got a notification for you and another notification for some other person I follow. And I was like, I can follow him whenever. Oh my god, this is like a dream come true. And this is a recent revelation. When I saw the overlay, and then I was like, here comes the man in black, you know? So yeah, I did not get scared because hey, if you are me and I am you, remember Rush Hour? So yeah, I held my ground, and I'm not scared. and reality is vast, it's huge. And salutes to you, brother Kris Nelson. You've held your ground for how long? The last time I mean, sorry, the first time I got in touch with your work was 2018 or 19. It was around my best friend's wedding, and I remember that. And ever since, I've never forgotten. I'm like, I have to follow you till my last breath. I don't care for religion, I don't care for brands, I don't care for nothing, you know. And my thank you to you, sir. Thank you so much, everybody else. Thank you so much for being so kind, for listening to my rant. And I swear, I promise to God, the higher power that exists, the real code of the matrix that got hijacked and everything, I promised, I witnessed that. And I mean it. Thank you so much for everything. And it means a lot. I have literally nobody to talk to, and oh my god, you were live and I just couldn't hold my ground. Damn it, I'm flying high. But all right, I will retract now. I'll go back to the hole that I came from. Okay, you guys carry on. It was lovely talking to you, also kind of you. And much appreciated. Please, please keep coming back. I'll make it a point that I join every time that I can. Okay, much love, much respect. All right, I'm gonna mute myself now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on board. It was definitely the most lively, jovial person who's come on and spoken so far. Well, thank you for your energy and your kind words. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll let you guys go with.
I just want to say that her energy and her positivity is so carrying on, and I think that if she just takes that form and just runs with it, she can do so much good work with the people that she loves, the people that she cares about, and in creating content that influences others. I think that that kind of positivity and that level of energy is really endemic to making sure these thoughts have a wide appeal, because sometimes if we're in this space, it just can get kind of very precise, and very precise, and not it's necessary, that precision of speech and that precision of thought, but at the same time, like, I think that having that flexibility and that willingness to bring in and incorporate various cultural touchstones and stuff, while it is still is endemic to, it's still a part of the brainwashing itself, right? Being trapped in visual media, because I for sure am in that brainwashing place as well, where I am completely comprised of my entire life watching so many movies and television, and they're burned into my brain for eternity. And I don't know if there's anything I can do to extricate myself from those jingles that are still playing over and over in the background. But I think that they're taking that energy and actually finding relationships that you can, or relative, finding people who can relate to it is a great strategy for carrying on these thought forms. And just throwing that out there. Okay, sipping now.
That right there shows the impact that one can have. Chris's work has touched individuals all across the world, through India. And this was at a time, I want to say, Kris, you was kind of absent around 2019 because you came back during COVID, right?
Yeah, I came back 2022 with the flowchart analysis of the Aquinas on Liberty essay that Mark read like 2-3 times during his podcast series.
Yeah. And you was doing a lot of writing when the whole COVID stuff was going down.
Yeah, I got, okay, yes, you noticed that.
Yeah.
When COVID happened, I was like, okay, this retarded shit, I got to get into it again. So then I was like got a bunch of videos censored from YouTube and strikes. First time ever I got strikes because, but I was putting stuff like, it was pretty scientific and like accounts from doctors, but they were like, no, but yes, I came back at COVID.
Yeah. But yeah, that impact right there. And, Kelly, it shows what the individual can do. And I want to thank this individual, for coming on and sharing that with us, because it was very lively. It was very energetic. And, sometimes that energy is needed. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, it can be a struggle sometimes, not being able to talk to individuals who are close to us. Sadly, it's unfortunate. It's something that a lot of us, go through, but we endure. We persist and we stay strong. And that's why doing this inner work, this shadow work, and understanding these moral truths are of importance. Because when you are doing the inner work, it's going to help you build that level of discipline, those spiritual armors that are going to be necessary when it comes to, sadly, this lonely walk the road that a lot of people don't want to travel on. So just some food for thought, because I also communicate with another individual who is from India, a female, and she says it's also, very hard for her to talk to, individuals and share things, like true spirituality, like consciousness, like the nature of reality. And it is tough, especially being in certain parts of the world. But, there are always means, to help cope and deal with that. But as long as the individual is doing the inner work and, is aligning to truth and morality, you will always have the most powerful force in the universe on your side. So, have some food for thought. And, hell, again, thank you for sharing that. But the impact that one individual can have, because that right there, man, like that right there was great. Like that was great. And it was great just because of the energy that she, like the energy that she brought. Because, Chris is very direct, and her energy is like the opposite of that. So like it's a much needed energy, man, and I love it. Because sometimes like I'm, not as energetic too, but sometimes that energy can help radiate and bring more life into the whole party. Can bring life into the whole discussion, and yeah, it's a much needed energy. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get her name, but woman from India. Well, you got a lot of
Yeah.
people. What?
Yes, sir. You can call me Fiona.
Fiona. All right. Well, you got a lot of
Yeah.
people here who appreciate you using your
Thank you.
voice and coming to speak,
Thank
and
you so much, sir.
that
It
could
means a
be
lot to me, sir.
motivation for you to since there's people around you who don't listen, you could try to you don't have to put your face out there. You could create an audio or a podcast and create a blog spot or whatever, a WordPress site for free, and you could just talk out there and share things on Facebook or whatever, and maybe you get people to listen and appreciate the things that you have to say and the work that you could do to influence others towards more moral alignment. So just take that as into consideration that that's one way that you're feeling isolated with the people around you, where you could try to connect with other people by creating that content, and then people could come to you and ask you questions, and then you could have more conversations with them if that's something that you're interested in. So just giving you ideas, and yeah, you can try that out, and it could probably bring more positivity for you, since you're like pretty down about not being able to communicate and talk with people around you. Well, if you do that online, then you could have, they won't be around you, but like us, we're online and communicating with others. Well, you could form connections with people and have meaningful conversations with people online. So it's a substitute for that lack of those meaningful conversations in your personal life. But I think we're all in the same boat there, and lacking oftentimes meaningful conversations with our families and those around us who are, they're in like another world of, they're still in the matrix, and they still want the matrix to be around. And yeah, so when you come online, when you try to find people online, that's one way where you can get that connection and do that. So take that into account, and you could, with your energy and all that, you could maybe you could become really popular compared to us who are more lower energy and maybe more boring to others. There could be other people who would really appreciate what you have to say and the way you say it. So there's some food for thought and to maybe motivate you to try something out. Hey Jerry, we're ending the stream there, but if you want to say anything, go for it.
Hello, I see there's someone new here. Hi, Brendan. Hey, everyone.
Hi, sir.
That's all right. I'll catch the replay.
All right, cool.
Okay. Uh, can I please say something before all of you go? It's like a big, big day for me. I don't care for my birthday. I care for something like this, okay? So please 2 minutes, I promise, huh? So Chris, sir, when you say I can't even call you Kris Nelson now, it's like I'm talking to my mentor. I cannot call him by name. With respect, Chris, sir, actually, uh, it was your demeanor, your conduct, so calm, so stable, so grounded, that you speak, yes, you speak in a very subtle, soft tone, but that hits the spot every freaking time. I mean, look at the videos, my goodness. You have like, what do you call that, finding needle in the hay? My dear, you've not only found the needle in the hay, you've actually stitched a big lengthy sweater with it. Okay. And so much so that sweater is also beneficial in terms of winter. So what I'm trying to tell you is your work is, like it's like glacier fold. You're doing it steadily and so calmly that tells me that I am scattered. You understand? Like there's a baseline. Baseline is where zero is, the stillness is. Everything is stillness. It's the reaction, the positive, the negative, the too happy, the too sad. That's what gets me rattling. But when I hear you, I was like, who is this person? So calm and yet delivering the heavy loads of information. What you are giving is not available on ChatGPT. It's not available on Perplexity. And good lord about the YouTubers that are there online. Please, you have no idea. I tried to talk to people on anonymous dating apps, and I was discussing life, and they're like, "You are so unholy. You're supposed to be talking about, hitchhiking and DTF, bad things." And I was like, "No, brother, I have nobody to talk to. Where do I go?" And then I thought, hey, perhaps, through conversations like this. So again, I'm losing. See, this is what happens when you have too much energy. You don't know how to contain it. That's what I was saying. That, Chris, brother, how you talk, so polite, so calm, you know how to not only hold your ground and you keep it steady. It is easy to become the highest scorer in the class once, but it takes a lot of, titanium stuff to consistently remain the top scorer, and you are it, my brother. That's what has pulled me to you. What else is there? And again, so many thanks to everybody. I don't know the names, and like I said, you could call me Fiona. It was lovely interacting with you all. Thank you. You guys are very welcoming. You could have just booted me out. I know how it works, all right. Sometimes when you don't align with the program, they don't care. They'll just announce, yeah, yeah, some, what do you call that? A disruptor. So it's a disruptor. You could have labeled me anything and you could have just booted me out. But no, you, so much humility and so much kindness to you guys that I am feeling so small, and I'm an empath. No, a living disruptor, but empath inside. I'm very, very, very highly sensitive. And with that being said, you just took me in as if I've talked to you for years. I don't know how many lifetimes. But yes, I with my hands folded. I'm from India, and that is how we greet and thank each other, with my hand folded. Dear, I apologize, my camera is not on, but I can send you a picture of it. Okay. So thank you so much. It was lovely. All of you all, I wish you the best, and I hope you would let me in the next time I would want to talk to you. And it was lovely. My God, I'm going to dream about you guys. So no, I didn't bring anything extra. I just brought disruptive a world of energy which was scattered all over the place. But you, after your kind words, you put me in the straight line. You were still trying to guide me. Can you imagine? The person is still trying to accommodate my thoughts. So again, whatever ties you and I have had, the karmic contracts before we actually came on this plane, regardless, You are my hero, and I stand with it. So, with that, I'll now mute myself for real, and let you be, and then we will end the chat. Okay? Thank you so much again. I have a white smile on my face. I can't wipe. Thank you.
All right. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for coming by. And yeah, maybe see you in the future. It's so far every Wednesday. Well, maybe it's Thursday where you are. So yeah. Anyways, same time every week, and people are welcome to join and come talk about the topics. And yeah, so I'll end again saying, if anyone wants to say anything, go ahead, and then we'll wrap it up.
Just, thank you for, doing this work. Fiona, thank you for joining us. Brandon, thank you for joining us. Jerry, I think I saw you yesterday. But, it's always, good when others join. Because, usually it's Kris and myself a lot, but it's always nice, having new faces, join this conversation to talk about freedom, morality, truth, natural law, and why people ignore causality. So, thank you guys. And hell, again, at the end of the day, it's all about moral truth and aligning to those moral principles so we can become better, holistic, conscious individuals and understand the difference between right and wrong by way of free will choice. I'll end on that.
I'll just pop in real quick and say thank you guys so much for allowing me to be here and talk with y'all. I know, I'm kind of on the shallow end of the pool, perhaps in many ways. You guys have a great depth of knowledge, which I really appreciate. So thank you for holding space. It's powerful. I'm grateful, and I will return.
Yeah, I gotta check out your interview with Kris, Brendan, and I'll just say, I'll be here on time next time. And yeah, thank you for what you do, guys. Good night.
Cool. Yeah, maybe see you next week on time, and you could partake more in the conversation. So yeah, I'll wrap things up. As usual, thank you, Brandon, for coming by. Really appreciate you always coming by. Thank you to the new Brandon for coming by. And Fiona, last minute ball of lightning coming in here, infusing us. Appreciate the kind words, and glad you're coming online and in an open live chat and putting your voice out. And who knows where that will lead? You could end up, like I said, I'm encouraging you to take it progressively to greater heights. So yeah, I guess that's it. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll continue next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll be Fear or Love Part 5. We'll continue this discussion. So have a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Take care. Peace.